I want to reiterate that this is SZV's decision to send patients to Cayman. I'm not involved in terms of determining where people are going or where they're not. In the end, those are SZV's decisions. Relationships with other countries continues, so we're still continuing to send patients to where we've been sending them, so Curacao, Aruba, Colombia. Fact is that SZV has a backlog. They have a backlog of about 100 patients that have been waiting for service. This allows them to tap the resources from Health City and take care of that backlog. It also then provides an opportunity for us to investigate whether this is a longer-term possibility, a relationship that continues, that can be built on. I've seen some comments about cost, that Cayman Islands is an expensive destination. And they're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons why I think it was good to go. Cayman Islands, for your information, they don't have any wage taxes in Cayman. So how do they fund their tax structure is through import duties. So that means that the people, the salaries that they earn, no taxes are taken out of it, and that's what they spend on their island. But to pay for that, they have an import duty. So it means that everything that's there that you buy, your food, your drinks, your beers, all of those things, are more expensive because they're heavily taxed. And that means that if you go around the island, in general, you would find that the cost of living is fairly high. However, what SZV has done is they've negotiated, basically, in putting it in tourism terms, an all-inclusive package. So by chartering the flight, they've managed to lock in a fare for the price for the airfare, which means sometimes if you send patients to other destinations, Colombia, etc., it depends on market rates. If the load factors are high, if you book late, your prices for your tickets are high. In this situation, our ticket prices have been fixed at a certain rate. The Health City also has accommodations on site. So those hotel facilities, those rooms, are also put into a bundle, as well as food, as well as their medical services. And interesting to look at is what they've arranged is with the medical services, rather than, let's say, sort of an a la carte pricing. In other words, as you go, you'll get your bill at the end from some of the other destinations, and they'll add on services and all types of additional accessories, let's say. They've negotiated a fixed bulk price per service. So when people say Cayman's expensive to live, it's true. Cayman's expensive to live. But from what we're looking at, from a medical perspective, we've locked in very attractive pricing, fixed pricing, so I see that it's competitive with other destinations. Certainly not astronomical. And these are things that we're going to work out and see how it really translates with this test phase of 6 to 8 weeks rotations where we're sending patients in to see in reality how does it work out. I'm also pleased the flight should be, as we speak, should be on its way back to Cayman. Ms. Parveen Borcha, the Chief Consumer Officer, and Ms. Carty, are one of the referral officers from SZV, is on the flight as well for them to experience it and also to accompany our first batch of patients that are going to Cayman to ensure that we deliver the best quality of care to the people of St. Martin, which they deserve. Last thing I want to touch on very briefly, it seems that everyone's talking about the dump today. One of the opportunities, there's a slide of the dump or in Cayman, actually. It's a landfill versus our dump. In Cayman, they've had experiences in the past where there are fires at the landfill on a fairly frequent basis. But they've now managed it, and they've brought it under control to the point where the fires are rare, if not non-existent. What's interesting, they have a dump/landfill. Their population size is roughly equivalent to the size of St. Martin. So they have a lot more land, but their population size and therefore the amount of garbage that they generate should be comparable. And their solution of a landfill is comparable. So what does that mean? It means that there's an opportunity to share best practices, worst practices, and to learn from each other in terms of what did they do to bring this under control. So comes down to a couple basic principles. Security, it was touched on today that there's possibilities of vandalism, arson, where people are setting fires. So it means you need to have proper security around the facilities that people who are not authorized to go don't go. And Venting of the methane gas, that's something that the ministers touched on. And I think something that's very important is proper coverage of the landfill itself. It's very important that garbage, after it's compacted, is covered with soil. That prevents the oxygen from getting into feeding the fires. And I think that they've made a concerted effort to make sure that the facility is properly managed. And they are also working towards a longer-term solution. Same thing as St. Martin is. So again, we have similar parameters to the problem. Why can't we share information in terms of how we develop the long-term solution? So the flight, besides providing an opportunity for our people to get access to quality care, it's also an opportunity for us to deepen our relationship with the government of Cayman and to exchange best and worst practices. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, good morning. I'd like to start this morning by commending the police for the act that they took in memory of the late Anik Arundel in directing traffic. The symbolic act was very touching. Although at first I was a bit worried when I heard that the brass was going to direct traffic. I was wondering if they still remember how to do so. But apparently they succeeded. But it was a very noble act, and I commend them for that. I would like to touch on press reports on the past days pertaining to the situation in the prison, where it was reported that guards were attacked by prisoners. If one read the reports, one would get the impression that there was a riot so happening. There was a fight in the prison. There was an unexpected confrontation between one or more prisoners and one or more guards. While this may sound strange or heartless, it is something that happens in prisons. Whether in the best run prisons, there are always encounters between prisoners among themselves and prisoners versus guards. Okay, so the fact of something like that happening is not an abnormal fact in a thing. What has to happen is management of prison and authorities and myself responsible. We have to do everything in our power to make sure that these things do not happen. And if in the event that they happen, that the damage that is done is limited. In this case, one of the guards got hit in the eye, and as such had to be hospitalized. The situation was brought under control immediately by the guards present, and as a matter of fact, even assisted by some of the prisoners to bring the situation under control. There was no need to call in the police to do so. It was immediately brought under control by the guards themselves. The detectives were called in by prison management based on the complaint of what happened. So the detectives came to investigate what happened, but it was not needed to have nor the riot squad of the prison or of the police to come in and take care of it. I just wanted to put the incident in the right perspective. The young man involved is doing pretty well. He's in the hospital for observations and to make sure that there's no lasting damage or whatever to the eye. And as far as the reports that I have, that is not the case. So to stay on the issue with the prison, yesterday, as a matter of fact, the follow-up phase took place where I met with the task force that was put into place. Task force comprised of representatives of the prosecutor's office, the police department, the court of guardianship, and the correctional institute. We had a very positive meeting, and remember at the beginning of my term, and when announcing the actions, the initial actions that will be taken, we asked for a period of 3 months to normalize the situation. Okay, that was in February. So that we are still in that process of normalizing the situation. But that doesn't mean that nothing is happening. But a lot what is happening right now is basically not visual. No, it's not the visibility of exactly what is happening is not always there, besides the change in management. But issues like, for instance, the locks in the prison. Locks have been ordered. Locks will be coming, but these are not just locks that we can go by ace and buy. So these locks have to be manufactured, and it take a couple of weeks before they're here. And what we do is make sure that in the meantime we secure the matter, but those things have been ordered. We are now in the process of looking to contract out the fencing part to fix the fencing, and these things are ongoing and taking place. The action plan, it is not as if we are going to start and do everything over again. There's an action plan on the table. I hope to bring it to updated version. Was made out of discussion. There was a conference last year with all of the stakeholders involved, I think sometime in May of last year, and that action plan was produced. We are going to actualize that action plan. We're busy finalizing the actualization, and by next week it would be brought to the Council of Ministers, so that the Council of Ministers would approve it and give that broad support to what is going on. I would also like to mention, you have a setup of the plan van aanpakken, the plans of approach, okay? And you have one for the prison and one for the police. The police is progressing very good with the plans of approach, where we believe that strongly that, you know, in a few months we would have met all of the conditions that we had to meet to finalize the plans of approach. The prison naturally is a different story, but the action plan is to execute, to do the things that we have to do in order to finalize that. All of the different task force will have the stakeholders that all have to do with the prison. And from their input, we would be, as minister, we getting the advice of some of the things that we should do and should not do as we go along. We are not looking at a patchwork. We are looking at fixing the situation in the prison the way it should be, and to be able to meet international standards and international norms. But this is not something that you're going to do in a month or two. It is almost something like what my colleague, Minister Emmanuel, said about the dump, but it's something that we have to do as quick as possible. The situation, for instance, one of the situations, there's one with shortage of staff. It is not a shortage of staff because you don't have enough people working. It is a shortage of staff because you have a high percentage of sick leave. Okay, you cannot just go in and start telling people, oh, you have to come back to work, or we're going to fire you, or things like that. They are human beings, and we have to look into the situation properly by expert to find out exactly what is going on. And in the meantime, what happened, the unfortunate thing of it is someone might stay home because they are worried that it's not safe. But by staying home, they are helping the unsafe situation to continue for those who are working. Okay? Again, when you're dealing with human beings and all sides, the inmates have their rights, the guards have their rights, and we have to look at the safety of all. So, for instance, if we are taken to court for regarding the rights of the inmates, the argumentations that are brought forward are geared towards that one specific group. My responsibility is not only the inmates, it is also the guards, it is the community at large, et cetera, et cetera. We have to look at that situation. So, in there's a committee, the Progress Committee, and the Progress Committee, based on the reports from these organizations as to how, what they did over per quarter, make a report. And that report, up to present, has been very damning in the sense that we were not following what we had to do. In February last month, the fourth quarter report was released. I had a meeting with them in February. And there's a passage in the report that state that their previous reports, they list all of the things that were not good, that should be changed, et cetera, and in their words, they said, to no avail because nothing happened. They said they would not do that in this report. So the report is not a 9-page report like normal, it is like a 2 or 3 page report. And they said this time they would not do that because they met with the Minister of Justice, and in talking to the Minister of Justice, the Minister indicated to be aware of the problem, to be dealing with the problem, to give the problem a high priority, and they want to give the Minister the opportunity to realize his plans, the plans that was also put forward to them. What I put forward to them is the same thing that I put forward to the Council of Ministers, who's also supporting what we are doing, is also what I put forward to the public, put forward to the Inmates Association. Up to now, the support is there to make sure that everything happens and happen quick. But we have to normalize the situation, diffuse the situation in the period. I hope we can do it before the 3 months, but that is the period that we asked for. So my request to everyone is, have some patience. It is being done, and as things happen, I would report them here to you. Another situation that hit the media was the situation with the lawyers and their payments. I think it was a bit unfortunate that it reached so far, but there was a delay in the payment of the thing because due to an administrative mishap. And just one thing I wanted to clarify, because it said that when contacting the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Justice blamed the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance blamed the Ministry of Justice. Well, that was not on ministerial level. When we read it, we immediately checked what the problems were. There is no issue with the availability of the monies to pay. So the administrative problem that was most probably was delaying the payments. I think there were 3 or 4 payments that still had to be made overall. Have all been processed. They would be going on to the finance department. What I've done is I've invited Mr. Hatzman for a meeting. I'll be meeting with him, if I'm not mistaken, this afternoon today, and we will clarify the matter. It is my intention to work very good and in a cooperative basis with all stakeholders. And I do believe that if people do the work, they should get paid, and if you cannot pay them at a particular moment, we should tell them something. So I'm going to sit with Mr. Hatzman, and we're going to discuss and regulate how we would do in the future should anything come up. Then I have some requests. We are approaching the Carnival season. And all of us on the Council of Ministers, and specifically my colleague, the Minister of Education, we are concerned with the involvement of the youth in Carnival. I would like to make a request to parents and guardians to supervise, especially the minors who are partaking in the carnivals and the jump up, to avoid misunderstandings afterwards, because the police would be vigilant, the police would be doing the job. You know, as a parent myself, I know, you know, once the kids leave home and you really don't know sometimes the things that they would get into. But one would have to ask themselves if a 13-year-old should be out in a jump up until the wee hours of the morning. And, you know, we want to avoid that. If that situation happens, and the police would actually do their job and act, that we're going to get a lot of criticism because the police this and the police that. So I just want to remind the parents that they too have a responsibility during this busy season to be more vigilant with their kids. A brief announcement based on TIAT. Last week I met with the director of the tourist office, newly appointed director, Mr. Rolando Bryson. We had a very, very good discussions as to moving forward, especially with a lot of the promotional programs and projects that have to be dealt with. And I would suppose that in the coming week, the tourist office himself would be making different announcements of those programs. I think I have covered everything that I wanted to, and I thank you.
You were going to meet with the staff. Are you aware that management of SMMC just issued a gag order to all staff members so that they should not speak to the inspectorate who is supposed to conduct an audit that you asked for?
First of all, the audit has not commenced as of yet, so there's nobody for them to not speak to. So, and I'm not aware of any gag order being issued, but I'll inquire into it.
Do you know if there's any other gag order issued?
Not that I know.
Not from your cabinet, from anybody else?
No, not that I know.
And do you know if the audit, if you have a date for the audit yet?
Not yet. In discussions.
Thank you very much, Bibi. Andrew, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning to all ministers, Minister Emmanuel. Concerning the GEBE, we understand that your ministry sent a letter asking for the removal of the head of the GEBE. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. And also for the Housing Foundation, you requested to some members to resign. Any update on that?
No.
Thanks. Okay. Prime Minister, concerning the outdoor emergency system, you have an update for me concerning that?
I was coached to say no. No, as we discussed yesterday and briefly this morning, I do not have an update. I think I can recall that payment had been approved, but one of the things that we've been encountering with the several glitches that we have been having, I don't want to necessarily say documents get lost, but at times we have serious difficulties accessing some information. While it is not a question, I would want to interject here that on behalf of the Minister of Education, who is on a business trip with meetings in Cuba, that I saw an article that appeared in the newspaper, in one of the papers yesterday, with strong accusations being levied against the minister by the university as to not having the respect to answer and things like this. The minister did not receive the emails when they were sent. As a matter of fact, I was just on my phone and got an email that was supposedly sent to me 2 or 3 days ago, and I just got it at 7:20 this morning. So the minister says she received them while she was traveling, while she was away. Some other correspondence came in. In the meantime, though, she has had legal counsel on this whole matter, and a response is being drafted, and she will address it. What I can probably make available, because I don't know if the media, particularly the one that wrote the last story, has all the information. It is good sometimes when someone tells their side of the story, and you just provide the emails that you have sent the minister, but you do not provide the information and the responses that they have had over the past weeks from the very same minister. So I just wanted to clarify that as well, and to back to it. I promised that I will look into it, because I can recall it was discussed, it was approved, but why payment have not yet been made, I'm not too sure.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Lita, good morning. You have the floor.
Good morning, Cedric. Good morning, ministers. 3 ministers raised the issue of the dump, and all 3 mentioned that there is some situation where it has been indicated that some of the fires were started by fire starters, pyromaniacs, whoever. Has an official report, you said you're planning to, Minister Emmanuel, that a report should be filed with the prosecutor's office. Actually, the report should be filed with the police to begin with. And why hasn't that report been filed already if there are people out there saying they know who started the fires?
We're investigating
You're investigating
the claims
the claims.
that
So
such is the case.
So you haven't gone to the police yet. You're investigating first, then going to the police.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alita. Hilbert Haar, you have the floor.
Good morning, Minister Lee. Is it correct that there is an out-of-court settlement between Vamet and SZV? I asked Glenn Carty about it, and he didn't deny it, but it was like he didn't feel free to make a statement about it, because he said, I'm in a tripartite context here.
Look, as we've looked at the possibilities for how the court case has impacted the development of the hospital, one of the goals has been to negotiate a settlement so that the hospital project could continue. Those discussions and negotiations have gone back and forth, and to my understanding, have not been finalized. But it is the desire to reach an out-of-court settlement so that the country can proceed with the hospital that the country needs. So there are discussions, there are detailed discussions as to whether everything's been, whether there's a final settlement, whether if there is a settlement, whether it's been properly executed. I'm not aware of yet, but it is our desire to have a settlement as soon as possible so we can move forward.
Thank you. Minister Gibson, I understand that the president of the central bank was upset with your statement of last week that he didn't get through the screening. We got a letter from his attorney, and that mentions that he's taking things to court. Do you have any update on when that court case is going to take place?
First of all, I'm not aware of the fact that the president of the central bank was upset. I don't know. I read the story, and I think he said that we were being premature, and that he had the option to appeal. And it's exactly what I said when I made it known to the public that the screening, that he did not pass the screening. If his lawyer is saying he's taking it to court, maybe he misspoke, because the only option that he has is to appeal at the appropriate appeal instance. And that's a right that he has, and nobody's denying him that right. We'll have to await the decision of the appeal instance when that appeal is filed.
One last question, Minister Emmanuel. I read that you're going to build 60 high-tech bus stops. That's a great idea, I find, but How much is that going to cost and who's going to pay for it?
How much is going to cost? Who?
Those bus stops, somebody's going to build them, somebody's got to pay for it.
It's not going to cost the people of the government of St. Martin not 1 cent. And I was surprised a bit when I read the article, and individuals from the media don't know what a solar panel bus stop is or looks like. Basically, it will be run with solar panels. In the night it has light. Bus stops as it is right now have no light in it. They are going to recoup or make their money from advertising around with billboards. It's not going to cost us not 1 cent.
So the company is going to build them and pay for
Yes,
it. Okay, thank you.
yes. You're